I'm Cherian George. I'm an academic at the Nanyang Technological University in Singapore. My topic at Bellagio is a journalism-related topic. I'm looking at how journalists in open societies should deal with expressions of intolerance, such as hate speech. This topic is interesting to me on a number of levels. First of all, it's an issue that seems to be cropping up all over the world in unexpected ways. We find groups and individuals dealing in expressions in the course of political debates and political discourse that deeply offend religious and racial minorities. When this happens, journalists are often in a bind because they're not sure whether to publicize these events and thereby warn the public that there are these hateful groups out there, or whether this unwittingly gives these groups precisely the ammunition that they're looking for, the public platform that they are looking for. There are, of course, some countries with strict hate speech laws, and in those cases, the decision is taken out of journalists' hands. But in many open societies, the law tries to take a back seat, and it really is up to journalists to exercise journalistic ethics when deciding whether and how to report such incidents. Of course, responsible media do try to abide by various codes of practice and codes of ethics. But when I look at them, I realize that this particular issue of how to deal with intolerance is something that most codes are silent on. In most cases, codes of ethics will only say, for example, that journalists should avoid unnecessary stereotyping. And I think the silence in codes of ethics is partly due to the fact that it is a rather new phenomenon. It is not so new, though, in legal circles. We find for decades, this is something that courts have had to deal with. And it is also being discussed in democratic theory. So what I'm trying to do is to take the lessons that have been drawn from jurisprudence in open societies as well as democratic theory and try to translate it into guidelines for journalists. I come from Singapore, and in Singapore the government has taken basically a zero tolerance approach to speech that is even mildly insulting to religious groups. This, I think, in terms of democratic theory, is problematic because I think most theorists would recognize that there is a necessity for us to be able to criticize religion and criticize religious authority and religious leaders who are, after all, a source of power in themselves, and to insulate religious groups and religious leaders and make them above criticism, I think is dangerous for society. So I do not think personally that is the way to go, that the law should insulate religious authority or religious leaders so completely. So I'm looking more at more open societies. The ultimate example, of course, would be the United States, where the First Amendment is extremely strict in prohibiting the state from intervening, even in instances where the speech is quite outrageous. In Europe, there's a slightly different take on it, where the state does, in fact, intervene when there's evidence that the speech incites hatred or when it encourages discrimination against minorities and so on. So I'm looking at the range of debates and the range of approaches, mainly in freer societies. There is no legal consensus, and this is not ultimately an exercise in legal theory building. I'm looking at these legal debates to see what wisdom can be drawn from there to inform the practice of everyday journalism. The residency is really a priceless opportunity to insulate oneself from all the distractions that normally intrude in the course of daily life of an academic. So I do find, amidst the beauty and the pampering and so on, I am able to get a tremendous amount of work done in a short time. In addition to that, I think what I've found to be extremely useful is to be surrounded by a group of outstandingly intelligent and creative individuals from a range of disciplines. And I think that exposure to sort of a multidisciplinary cohort is extremely valuable for someone like me in the stage of the research that I am in, because it's a way to force you out of your sort of theoretical and disciplinary comfort zone. It is a way to open your eyes to different ways of looking at a problem. And I think that has been indirectly extremely helpful.